Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 360 Sports Network Road to the Final Four podcast series, where we look at all of the conference tournaments leading up to the big dance to see who will get the automatic bid, who might receive an at-large berth, and who's going to be left dancing by themselves. Because before we can fill the field of 68, we first have to break down the conference championships. I'm James, the Value Man Dotson. With me tonight is the mad scientist, Greg Bichero. Mr. Bichero, how we doing out there?
You know what? I'm really enjoying this. College basketball is getting to be a little addicting here. Breaking down these conferences with you here. And you know what? We're going to have an interesting insight here on the Big Ten here, just looking at this. This is a really, really strange conference.
It is, because the teams that are at the top of the brackets, some of them are performing all right, but a lot of them are kind of in a funk right now, or not performing as well as they should. Where a couple teams at the bottom or in the middle of the pack are some of the hottest teams in the conference, and the 6 and 7 seeds probably aren't even going dancing when the 8 and 9 seeds in the tournament are. So, a lot of parity going on, but that's just the Big Ten. Honestly, that's college basketball as a whole this year, to be honest.
Yeah, really. And you know what? The number 12 seed in this tournament is what I'm most intrigued with, and that's Penn State.
You're right. The Penn State Nittany Lions, they got pretty much the best first-round matchup they could ask for. When they played Michigan this year, they lost by 8 points on the road, and it really was a lot closer than that the entire way. And then they went and beat the 4th-ranked Wolverines when they played in Happy Valley. So watch out, Michigan, because Penn State is a hot team. They're playing very well. Won 3 out of their last 5 games. No Tim Frazier this year. Not too much of a problem down the stretch. DJ Newbill and Jermaine Marshall have stepped up. 16 points, 15.5 points per game. I'm most impressed with the big guy, Sasha Borovniak. He's actually come up big for him and is starting to play a good game down low. You know Michigan doesn't have the height. If they can go to Borovniak and Travis down low, the Colella shooting it from outside, the Newcastle guy, anything is possible, and it would not surprise me to see the Nittany Lions get an upset over Michigan again. They played them too well this year.
You know what? You hit the nail right on the head. Michigan does not have the height. And as you said, if Colella can start shooting it from the outside, there's no saying how far Penn State can go. Now, this is a team that's got really nothing to play for except for pride right now. They're not going to the big dance. They could be if they win this tournament, obviously. So, really, they're just laying it all out on the line, and I see an upset in the making here. I really do.
Yeah, now Penn State, I don't see them going the whole way by any stretch. But look, if they beat Michigan, who they beat once, probably could have beaten them twice. Wisconsin is who they would play in the second round, and Wisconsin beat Penn State on a buzzer beater in the season finale. So, nobody honestly would want to play Penn State right now because you never know what could happen. A scrappy, energetic team like that could be troublesome in the tournament. Now, let's talk about some of the other teams that are probably tournament-bound. I'm really intrigued by the 8-9 matchup. Minnesota and Illinois are probably both in the tournament solidly. However, if one of these teams lose big in that first-round game, we could be in a bit of a trouble area. What do you think, Greg? Minnesota, Illinois, what sticks out to you for these teams?
Well, you know what? I really like Minnesota only because of their coach, Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith has been to the big dance before, has won the big dance. This is a guy that can pretty much take a mediocre team and just kind of bend it toward his will and pretty much get as much as he can out of them. Now, what's really interesting about Minnesota is they started out in Fuego with a 15-1 run. They basically had wins over some major forces out there. The Memphis Tigers, Illinois Illini, of course, and the Spartans of Michigan State. And it wasn't until they had a really close game with the Indiana Hoosiers that everything kind of fell apart. And then, of course, toward the end of the season, they only won 5 of the last 15 games. So, but despite that poor run, this is the second season right now, tournament season, and of course, if you have the opportunity to go dancing in the Big 68, I think Tubby Smith is going to take this Minnesota team far. They've got a really, really solid presence in the post with this Trevor Mbakwe. This Mbakwe guy is averaging 10 points and 8.7 rebounds a game, so you really can't take this team lightly. So this is why Minnesota is sticking out right now in my head as far as being the team that can upset Illinois at this time frame.
Yeah, you make a good point there. Mbakwe is a force down low for sure. The senior averages 10 points, 9 rebounds per game. You can't argue with that. You also have the Hollins brothers, 14 points for Andre, about 10.5 for Austin. Thing is, after their top 5, there's really no scoring beyond that. You got a couple guys who average only 3 points per game beyond the top 5. So that's what scares me is their depth. And that's why I think I like Illinois a bit better, because they can go a little bit deeper. They have a couple big guys, Tyler Griffey and Nana Egwu, who can guard a guy like Mbakwe down low, and they can deal with the height that Minnesota will bring. I actually think Griffey has a big tournament, and I think Illinois wins that first game. I think those two actually will compete well against Indiana. They've beaten Indiana once this year as well. So I can see, I'm going to go with Indiana, or with Illinois, I should say, winning their first-round matchup and making a very competitive game against the one-seed Hoosiers.
Okay, I mean, we can always agree to disagree on this here, but when I take a look at the Illini, they're coming in pretty cold after basically having lost 3 or 4 games. It all depends on how their X factor is going to be. Brandon Paul, is this guy going to be the guy that puts up 35 points on a 10 out of 16 shooting spree against Gonzaga, or is he going to be, put up pedestrian numbers? If this guy doesn't put up stellar numbers, I see a Minnesota win here.
Well, it's going to be a good matchup, and it'll be a great way to start the Big Ten tournament. Now, oddly enough, the 6 and 7 seeds are not looking to be tournament bound, the NCAA tournament, that is. Just the way their schedules have played out and the way that their season has gone. Purdue has a 15 and 16 record right now. They probably need to go the entire way through the tournament to win. They have a brother pair, Tyrone and Ronnie Johnson, 2 star athletes. They're playing pretty well right now. I could see Purdue being an interesting team to watch. They should easily beat Nebraska. A Purdue-Ohio State first-round matchup could be kind of fun.
Yeah, that could be fun, especially to see how well Ohio State can put up with that tenacious offense that Purdue can put together there. So that would be a fun one to watch.
Exactly. And now Iowa, the 6th seed, believe it or not, very interesting how this team has played out. They're 9-9 in conference and 20-11 overall. So they've played well. However, they have not beaten a ranked opponent this year. They need to have that signature win if they want any chance at the NCAA tournament. They won't get a signature win with their first-round matchup against Northwestern. It should be a win, but who knows with the way the season has gone. But if they could go and upset Michigan State in the second round, that could be the signature win they need to possibly get that at-large berth.
Yeah. The only signature wins that they really have were wins over Minnesota and Wisconsin, and really that's it. I mean, Iowa's pretty much played nobodies this entire season here. And, of course, when you live your life like that, you don't have anything to hang your hat on, well, you're not going to go dancing, obviously. So, but, yeah, Iowa is going to be an interesting mix here, too. I don't see Iowa going very far in this tournament, but they could be a disrupting factor, no doubt.
Right, and another thing that I think hurts them is the fact that they really don't have, that standout player that you see, especially in these big conferences. I mean, Indiana has, with Oladipo and Zeller, you have Aaron Kraft and Demarius Thomas Demarius Thomas, wow. You have Aaron Kraft and Deshaun Thomas for Ohio State. Guys like Keith Appling for Michigan State, Burke for Michigan. The big-name player that you all know about. There's nobody on Iowa's roster that a casual fan would know. Not many people know about Aaron Wright or Roy Martell. You just don't know about them. So I think that could hurt them in terms of the selection committee, but I think if they get a big win going into the weekend here into Selection Sunday, that could be enough in the voters' eyes to say, maybe we should look at this team.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how far they go.
It's a lot of speculation for sure. Now, another team that there is no speculation for, the number 5 seed Michigan Wolverines. What's funny, they're 5 in the Big Ten tournament. They're ranked 6th in the entire country. How do you explain that one, Greg?
You know what? I really can't explain that one. That's just one of those enigmas as to how in the heck did they get ranked at number 6 in the country, especially when you have a team like Penn State that plays them very close. Granted, victories mean a lot, but, when you have a team that plays another team very close consistently, perhaps there's something that has to be said about that.
Yeah, Greg, all I need to say about Michigan is just look at their season finale against Indiana. They had a very solid lead going into the last couple of minutes, and what happened? Trey Burke missed a shot that he probably shouldn't have taken. The team as a whole, including Burke, missed free throws, missed the front ends of one-on-ones, and what happened? A big guy goes down low, Zeller, makes a layup with little time left, and Michigan loses the game down the stretch. That's what causes this team trouble. They live and die by the outside shot too much. They need to have Trey Burke perform lights out for them to have a chance. And if Hardaway and South Francisco make their shots, they're in trouble. And when they can't guard a big guy because they don't have anybody above probably 6'8" on the roster who plays significant minutes, it's just a recipe for disaster. That's why they lost in the first round to Ohio last year. And honestly, depending on who their matchup is this year, if anybody has height, they can beat them. And honestly, even if they don't have height, I mean, the Bobcats last year didn't have height. If you have a team that shoots lights out from three as a mid-major, and you're not shooting well, what these big teams usually can do, the big conference teams can go and throw it to their guy down low and counteract a lights-out three-point shooting mid-major team. They can't do that. They have to rely on the three too much, and I don't like that for the Wolverines.
Yeah, you do put up a compelling argument here. However, I'm looking at the stat lines here. Trey Burke averages over 19 points a game, and he has nearly 7 assists per game, and Tim Hardaway Jr. pitches in nearly 15 points per game as well. So, with this said, that's a solid line right there, which perhaps this is why they're ranked so high, is because...
yeah. Oh, their stat line looks good. Their shooting looks good. They have the big names. That's the way it looks good. But I want to say something about Tim Hardaway. I'm going to look at the last 7 games for this supposed great outside shooter. Right. From three-point range, he shot 0 for 5 against Michigan State, 1 for 6 against Penn State, 1 for 4, 2 for 7, 0 for 3, 3 for 7, 1 for 6. Terrible down the stretch. Terrible shooting right now. You can't rely on this guy. They do it too much anyway, and I think unless Hardaway shows up from outside, I think it's going to be a one and done for Michigan again.
Yeah, what you just said is typical Big Ten numbers. They start out hot, and they finish cold in the stretch. So it should be interesting to see where Michigan falls here.
Absolutely. Now, the guys from up north, the Wisconsin Badgers, another 21-10 team. They got the number 4 seed. We all know about Brusewitz just because it's a fun name to say. Jared Berggren is not as well known, but that's because the team as a whole is very balanced. Berggren leads the team with 11.5 points per game, all the way down to Brusewitz, the 6th best scorer at about 6.5 points per game. I think the balance could be key for this team here, Greg.
Yeah, that's a very balanced team there with Wisconsin, and I'm very impressed with this particular team as well. This team matches up very well with many of the Big East teams that are out there. However, with that said, and I'm looking beyond, obviously, the Big Ten tournament, and forgive me because this is the Big Ten tournament discussion here, analysis, but with that said, Wisconsin, they're going to go far here in the Big Ten tournament. However, in the Big Dance, I don't see them going that much further because of the fact that there are better teams out there than them.
Yeah, they have a balanced team, but if they need production from everybody when they do that. And sometimes, especially in tournament time, you need to have that guy like a Trey Burke who can take over a game down the stretch. And there's no one on this team that I would trust enough to take it over. Ryan Evans maybe, but really there's nobody that I would trust enough down the stretch of a game. And that's why I like the number 3 seed Michigan State Spartans. They are a very balanced offense as well. When you have 7 players who are averaging the points and the minutes that they do, they go 8 or 9 deep. Again, the balance is good. The leading scorer only 13 points per game. That's where you might say, I'm a little scared they don't have a go-to player. However, you have Keith Appling at the point, who is finally starting to get back on top of his game. If Appling's playing well, Spartans are a Final Four team in my mind.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. And then, of course, you have the X-Factor team, Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State is... they're your definition of a schizophrenic team, Greg. They play well against the good teams, but sometimes they struggle against the lower teams. The reason that they are playing well right now, winning 5 straight, entering the conference tournament, is because they're finally finding scorers outside of Deshaun Thomas, and the main one is Aaron Craft. Aaron Craft is finally looking for his shot and driving the lane. Honestly, nobody can guard him when he drives the lane. It's kind of scary how easily he can pick apart a defense, and if they converge upon him, he can dish it out to a guy like Thomas for a three. If not, he can make any layup no matter. He could be on his back and he would make the layup. He's playing that well right now, and of course he is the Defensive Player of the Year. So Ohio State has a lot of things going for them, including especially the momentum.
Yeah, when you have a hot hand like that, definitely going into the tournament, that means an awful lot compared to a lot of these teams that have just got cold and basically gone missing pretty much toward the end of the season. So that's why I'm looking at Ohio State having a significant role, as much as I hate to say that.
And if they go the whole way, it's very possible that they'll definitely move up to a 2 seed, I would say, in the tournament, and depending on how the chips may fall elsewhere, they could slide all the way up to a number 1 if they play impressively enough. I mean, the committee looks on what a team's doing right now and also with the big picture. So I think the fact that right now that they're playing so well, if they can sweep through the conference tournament, they could be a number 1.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, a team that I think has locked up a number 1 seed in the tournament is the Indiana Hoosiers, and they're number 1 in the Big Ten Conference tournament as well. However, like you just said, Greg, they're a team that's kind of slipping right now. They lost their penultimate game against Ohio State. They really weren't in it for much of it, and then they almost lost at Michigan to end the year. Lost 2 out of their last 4, including that Minnesota game that we've talked about. I don't know. I mean, they have Cody Zeller, they have Victor Oladipo, great pair, and, I mean, of course, they can shoot well from anywhere on the floor. They do the inside jumper. I love Tom Crean as a coach. I mean, Will Sheehy is lights out. You got Watford and Hulls that are both shoot 48% from beyond the arc. Great numbers all around, but teams are starting to figure out how to play them.
Yeah, basically, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head here. This is formulaic basketball. And once you start to understand the code, once you start to understand the formula as to what and on how Tom Crean is moving this team around, you can figure this team out pretty well. And yeah, I think Indiana's biggest problem is going to be Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. I think Indiana will probably go to perhaps the 16 and fall short because you have 8 teams in the Big East that can match up very nicely with Indiana, if not beat Indiana at their own game. I'm looking at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm looking at Notre Dame. I'm even looking at a team like Villanova that can really cause Indiana a lot of problems here.
Yeah, the reason why Indiana is a shoo-in to get at least to the Sweet 16 in my mind is the fact that they have that inside presence that a lot of mid-major teams and honestly a lot of the major teams anymore don't have. I mean, Cody Zeller, when a guy shoots 57% from the floor, I mean, he's a 7-footer, 16 points, 8 rebounds per game, very impressive. And they always trust and they will always go down to him. What I think is going to be the difference for them, if they go far in the tournament or not, is how balanced they are beyond Zeller. They need to always look inside of him, but they need to have the role players, the Hulls and Watfords who shoot from outside, the Will Sheehys who come and put up 9, 10 points per game. Everybody needs to perform consistently the whole way through. The thing is, when the big guy gets in trouble, foul trouble, Cody Zeller, Victor Oladipo, they both have shown that they can do it. And when you're in the tournament, you have, the Big Sky and the Summit Conference referees who call a lot more fouls than you get away with that you would normally get away with in the Big Ten and Big East. That's where Indiana, as a strong team inside, down low, from a big conference, that's where the trouble can arise.
Yeah, you're 100% correct there. And here's another bit of analysis as well. You're taking a look at the Big Ten Conference itself and looking at the Big Ten Conference and comparing it to the Big East. The Big East is a stronger conference. And when you have a team like Indiana, who's ranked number 1 in the country, and you have Ohio State that's ranked up there as well, those are really, you really only have maybe 2 or 3 teams out of the Big Ten Conference that are really, really strong teams that can put up a good fight in the big dance. But the level of competition within the Big Ten Conference just isn't there compared to the competition levels that you're seeing in the Big East. And I'm afraid that a team like Indiana is going to get gobbled up only because they really haven't played to that high a level like many of these Big East teams have played. And this Big East tournament is going to be a great prep for the dance coming up here.
See, Greg, I think I'll disagree with you on that because those bottom dwellers in the Big East are no competition at all. However, we talked about the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten all potentially winning their first-round games. We said Penn State can beat Michigan. Northwestern, with their modified Princeton offense, can beat any team in the Big Ten when they have the right night and when Marcatulio shoots the way he normally does.
The Big Ten's a weaker conference. That's why. If you took Penn State and you put them in the Big East Conference, Penn State really wouldn't have that opportunity.
No, maybe, and I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say. I think definitely the fact that the Big East has the more balance in terms of, a team like Michigan, for example, has the smaller guys. They're almost a mid-major in a big conference type of thing. The Big East has the more prototypical type teams. They don't have a lot of the smaller 4-guard type systems that some of the Big Ten teams have. Maybe that's my point in trying to compare and contrast. It's tough to compare and contrast them. I wish, who knows? I mean, they used to have the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Maybe we need a Catholic 7 Big Ten Challenge going forward here.
Yeah, what's really made life a lot more difficult, too, on this is the fact that you have teams now in both the Big East as well as in the Big Ten that really shouldn't be in these conferences. They've got kind of shuttled in there or added in there, and as a result, it's created an imbalance, which really isn't been good for the conferences itself. And that could be actually something as to one of our What's Wrong with Sports podcasts down the way here. But
well, and you see that with the SEC gaining a couple teams, the Big Ten's going to gain a couple teams. It's going to be interesting looking down these next couple of seasons, I should say. But let's get back to the 2013 Big Ten tournament. It sounds like we are very much picking that Ohio State could win. I think that it's going to be Indiana versus whoever wins the Ohio State-Michigan State battle, to be honest. And I would give the edge to Ohio State in that. But, Michigan State is a team. Tom Izzo always prepares them for March. I can't let Michigan State out of my sights. I'm always thinking that they have a chance to win anytime that they play in March.
Yeah. You really can't turn your back on Tom Izzo's team at all. So really, it's really a kind of a toss-up here. How strong is Ohio State compared to Michigan State? That's going to be the big question, and that's basically how it's going to play out. So you see Michigan State winning it all?
I think I do. I think that Adrian Payne is playing lights out defensively. He almost shut down completely on his own, Deshaun Thomas in the last game. I think that they're going to change up what they did guarding Aaron Kraft. They weren't expecting him to go off like he did. I think you'll see Travis Trice on him a lot of the game defensively, and I think Michigan State beats them. And I think they go, even though they lost twice to Indiana, I think that an Izzo-run team, I think, the master will beat the pupil. Tom Izzo will beat his former pupil in Tom Crean down the stretch, and I think Sparty gets the automatic bid. But again, you have a 12-sided die, roll it. That's who wins the tournament.
There you go. Can't disagree with your analysis there.
Well, good deal. Well, as we have shown in many conference tournaments, anything is possible, and that's why we love March. Well, thank you, Greg, for joining us, and thank you, the fan, for joining us for our analysis on the Big Ten Conference Tournament Road to the Final Four special. Follow us on Twitter at 3S Network, and keep tabs at 360sportsnetwork.com. As we get close to Selection Sunday, we're going to analyze all the teams that are automatic bids and who the at-larges should be, because we need to make your bracket be the best it can be. You want to win your office pool, don't you there, Greg?
Oh, no doubt about it.
Absolutely, and the best place to do it, don't do the research on your own, just call us, we'll do it for you. Well, thank you again. I'm James Dawson, the mad scientist over there. Have a good evening.